Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. This is my most recent victory from my Thursday night chess league. I'd played in a round robin and this was the third round and I had the opportunity to win the little tourney. So here's the game. I kicked off with e4 and we went into Sicilian defense. So knight f3, knight c6 and bishop b5. This system I've been using for some time now to good effect. In the past I used to play the open Sicilian with d4, but I found that my results weren't very good against this, and I think part of the problem is there's a tremendous amount of theory to know if you go into these lines. They're exciting games and very double-edged, but I found bishop b5 is better suited to my style, and also I don't have a great deal of time to study opening theory, so this is a nice practical choice for me. So we played e6, I castled, and now we saw bishop d6, and I didn't like this move very much. The bishop on d6 is impeding the d-pawn, and I think just playing d6 here would be better, just, this small center. But there's a couple of games in the database for this idea, but it didn't seem to be a popular or the best choice for black. So I just played rook to e1. He played knight e7, and I played c3. So I've got a very primitive idea of just playing d4 and trying to establish a nice pawn center with pawns on d4 and e4. He struck back now with queen b6, and probably knight a3 is a reasonable choice here, or bishop f1. According to the database, the bishop f1 is seen quite a lot here. White has time to do this because black's pieces are badly congested on the queen side. Especially since he's played the queen to b6, he can't play b6 to develop the bishop to b7, and because of this bishop on d6 you have the same problem on the d file. Also, there's a couple of games in the database with the idea of bringing the knight to a3, but this seems a little bit unnatural to me, and I decided instead just to play the bishop to a4. I play the Ruy Lopez quite a lot, so maybe that's why this idea appealed to me. So after bishop a4, my opponent castled, and I strike back with d4 in the center. So a very simple objective is just to gain control of the center and start to develop the pieces, and hopefully start building up an attack on the king side. So we see c takes d4, c takes d4, and now knight b4. This looked like another slightly odd move here. I did some calculation for a while because I thought maybe he'd seen something. Maybe he's just trying to provoke some pawn weak moves, weakening the c file here. But I wasn't too worried about it. I think that white has such a space advantage after this that any deficit, any holes on the c file are kind of more than compensated by the space advantage. So a3, knight c6 and b4. Of course you'll notice there is a nasty hole on the c4 square, but the bishop could come to b3, and the knights could also defend the square if necessary, but it is a little bit of a weakness, and anytime you push pawns you are going to give some squares away, so you have to be aware of this. So he plays a5 now, and this is an idea that I'd looked at, but I think, if I did exchange here, or allowed him to exchange, it would be definitely in his favor, but b5 is possible. So I played b5. I had to do some calculations to make sure that b5 pawn wasn't going to become a target and that I would end up losing it, but I figured that I would be able to bring my queen to d3, my knight to c3 and then relocate the bishop to either b3 and c or c2 and then play a4 just to solidify this b5 square. So I think this was good for me because it keeps black's position very cramped. He played now knight a7, and I think this was a mistake. If I had been black, I definitely would have played here the knight to d8 instead. But it's not great either. You know, all of these pieces are very cramped still. So I just played queen e3. I have to do something to protect this square for the time being. He plays knight to g6. I think he was already probably a little bit worried. One of the ideas in these opening systems is to bring the bishop to c2, and then you have this interesting battery with the queen on d3, the bishop on c2, and the basic idea is that you're getting a lot of pressure against this h7 point, and then with a well-timed e5 you can generate a good attack. So after this knight g6 move, I realized that he's potentially targeting this f5 square, and I don't really want to allow him to exchange pieces. I'd like to keep him as cramped as possible. So I took the opportunity now to play e5, and there is the disadvantage of d5 is that I am, you know, potentially giving up control of some squares here. But again, that's only really a problem if your opponent's able to exploit it, and I thought that time was on my side here, and so all things considered I just decided to go for it. He played bishop to e7 and now knight c3. So I'm just overprotecting this pawn with the idea that I can relocate the bishop and then play a4 so that my pieces don't have to babysit this b5 pawn any longer. So he plays d6. I think he's, you know, desperate to try to get some counterplay, and very simple plan of, you know, bishop d7 and then maybe rook c8. But notice that after rook c8 the knight still has no way to develop effectively. So I played bishop c2, just preparing for the a4 push, and, you know, starting to think about an attack. And he plays the bishop to d7 as expected, and now a4. So rook a to c8. It's still not clear when this knight on a7 is going to participate in the game. So I was quite pleased about this because to all intents and purposes I'm a piece up.